afternoon. Welcome to Root Community Support Initiative once again. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about substance abuse and addiction. Um, I would say sorry because it's supposed to be last week, but I had something in the family, some matter in the family. I couldn't be here. And today we're here to bring knowledge, understanding really was addiction in our community. And when I say in our community, we right now in Monroe County, I know this all over the place. Many people, many families going through this in different ways. So it's important that we understand, first of all, what's addiction, how we can help the person who had the addiction, and how family is affected. And today we have Justin, behavioral health technician, sorry. And we have Ololika Adriana, that everybody knows, the assistant director for Root Living Ministry. And for those who don't know, I'm Maria Martinez, director from Roots Community Support Initiative. And I will gonna start with Justin that he introduce himself, say where he works, what kind of work he do, and then I will ask the questions.
All right. All right. Well, I'm Justin. Actually a behavioral health technician at a treatment center that treats drug and alcohol addiction as well as mental health. Um, I'm in recovery as well. Something I'm very passionate about, and I've struggled through a lot of things myself. And to be on the other end of things and helping others is probably one of the most satisfying things I could do right now.
Nice. Adriana.
Well, I'm the assistant director here at Roots Living Ministry. You guys see me a lot on the podcast, but today I'm here as just Kadriana, Carlos Martinez's daughter, who experienced quite a bit throughout his heroin addiction throughout my childhood.
First thing, when I would like to the people understand what is addiction, because a lot of people are very misconcept that word. When you say somebody, oh, he's an addicted, they already think, oh my God, a lot of things. The same thing with the alcohol. Like you say, oh, he's a drinker, things like that. They have that conception that, oh, that's the worst. They don't understand what's going on with the person. And simple words, how we can explain somebody who don't understand what's addiction.
Um, I would say like through my experience too, it was like I didn't come from like I was basically like the black sheep of my family. You know what I mean? There was no real alcohol abuse. There was no real substance abuse in my family. Um, there was nobody that struggled with anything like that. I had a good upbringing. There was no, I had a very good childhood. There was nothing that I could think of, like a trauma based situation that I could think of that was like why I turned to drugs. Um, it was basically like there was certain things in my life where there was like surgeries. There was a couple of car accidents where I was introduced to like narcotic pain meds, and just it did something to me that was different than anybody else. I know there's some people that might be able to get into a car accident and they're on like a narcotic pain med or something like that, and they could like put it down and it's fine. Like for me, it gave me like this sense of I don't know, like it gave me like a false sense of like I was more outgoing, I'm better at my job, I'm more social, I'm more this, and it gave me like this false sense of all these things. And throughout the years, it was like I wasn't a bad person. I know the misconception is like, a lot of people that like are addicted to drugs or alcohol or struggle like we're horrible people, like we're thieves, we're liars. It didn't start off that way. For me it was in like the beginning, like when it first started, it was like being able to like manage things. I had children and I was like married at the time and I had a very good successful job. And then like over time, like a lot of the consequences started with like you did a lot of things that I wouldn't normally do, but it was because of I was like feeding this monster inside of me, which was basically active addiction. And so like what I could say, like as far as your question was, like the best way I could explain it like is with my mom is like even when I was going through what I was going through, she never like really judged me because she knew who I was before. And once I was able to get through that for about it was about a 10-year span. Once I was able to get through that, she always told me like I know who that person wasn't you. And like now, being clean for almost 3.5 years now, it's like I'm back to who I was before. So like what you were saying about the misconception about like the stigma that carries, people that struggle with like alcohol addiction or drugs or anything like that. Like people picture us as like the homeless people on the streets, like panhandling and holding signs and stuff like that. That's not necessarily it. I've known people that I've been in treatment with doctors and attorneys and people like that struggle with the same things I did. So it's like all around us. I know, like being in recovery, there's a lot of people that I know that struggle with these things that you wouldn't be able to tell that they do. They don't look like a normal, quote unquote, like a drug addict or something like that. But yeah, we're just knowing people that struggle with something that it's like a chemical imbalance in our brain that like tells us we want more and it's okay and then I don't know how to explain it, but it's I think more now it's a little bit more understandable because it's affecting a lot more people. Whereas, when this first happened to me, like in my early years, probably about 15 years ago, it was like, oh man, like that's bad. Let's not tell nobody. Like, let's keep this hush.
Mm-hmm.
Like rehab wasn't a glamorous, cool thing like it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you got like celebrities and also too like that's a
Yeah.
big thing. Is like celebrities struggle with these things and it's like it also creates awareness that like you could be successful, you could be happy, you could be this, but it can still affect you in different ways. And I think that's one of the strong things too. Is like I think it's a little more. I'm not going to say socially acceptable, but recovery and treatment is a little more like acceptable now than it was before. So I think like with celebrities and stuff nowadays, for them putting a little bit of light on the situation, I think it helps bring like to end that stigma around people like that.
um, when my question is because I see that you can have a healthy person,
Hmm.
supposedly healthy person, like we know, and when that person is using drugs or alcohol, how we can say that the brain have like a damage or her body change
Hmm.
and her brain change? What happened? You can a little bit. What happened to that person?
What do you mean as far as using alcohol or drugs? How does that
Yeah,
change a person?
yeah, the brain of the person. It have any consequence like
As far as like
chemical?
me personally, I
No,
know.
I'm talking about in general. We have some people who do, some people who do not have those effects.
Hmm.
What's the worst can happen to a person when he's using drugs?
Um, I mean, it also depends, like the route of drugs. Like if you're an IV drug user, like Hep C, HIV, things like that, that's a very serious, risk. As far as like, I know, like as far as like the mental health part, like it affects like a lot of mental health and addiction, like coincide with each other. The
Yeah.
fact that like, it feeds depression and anxiety. I know like short-term memory loss, like there's a lot of things that it affected like your body, like physically it definitely does a toll on you.
Um, right now, in this moment, right now,
Hmm.
what is the drug that you see the people using like more or in the, I would say, um, I forgot the word, demographic. What is you see and the.
um, I would say heroin for sure is a big one. And a lot of it starts off with like a lot of people get started on pain meds. And you don't have to have a problem necessarily to like get addicted. It's
Yeah.
it's a thing of tolerance. Your body builds up a tolerance to things. I know a lot of people through being in recovery and like working in treatment. A lot of people start off like, hey, I went to a doctor. I got some pain meds. I got a bad back. I had surgery. The pain meds ran out. I didn't feel very well, so they were buying them on the street or whatever. And then, heroin being a very cheap substitute for narcotic pain meds, that's the one I probably see the most. And also drinking. Alcohol is still always a big one. I know through like COVID and the pandemic, like a
Yeah.
lot of people with depressed, they start drinking. The drinking starts feeding the depression, and it's like a cycle. I see that more I see that more now with like there was before this past year, there was a lot of people that had like long term effects, whether it was like depression, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
alcoholism, stuff like that. I noticed like recently there's been a lot of like recent cases of like people drinking heavily within the past year, people experiencing depression, anxiety in the past year. I think a lot of that correlates with like COVID and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
People lost jobs. It's affected a lot of families, and they turn to like, hey, I'm bored. I was drinking, or they're depressed. They start drinking, or they start using drugs, and I see that a lot now. Is a lot of older people rather than younger people now. It's kind of like turning.
That was my like
Hmm.
wow. Um it surprised me more like adults now is
Hmm.
like turning, especially because before I remember um I see alcohol a lot, but not the use of drugs in adults. And I've been seeing that adults isn't getting more involved, but I was like, nah, maybe it's me. Like I'm seeing far away. Um, I have a question, and how being an addict affect the family?
Hmm. I don't know where do I start.
Hey,
um,
yeah,
Seriously.
I mean, like with me personally, it was as far as like my family, my mother and father, it was like I caused a lot of strain like on their marriage. Like when I'm using drugs, like mom wanted to save me, dad wanted what's best for me, but dad was trying to be hard on me, and mom was
my,
trying to like love me up, and it was like it caused a lot of tension in their marriage. Um, when I first started using, it was I was married at the time, and all three of my kids were born like in my active addiction and stuff like that. Like towards the end, it was I didn't realize like a lot of the things I had, and it was like a rough road. But as far as like my family goes, it was like I was saying before about like my mom knowing that wasn't me. It was like I was completely different. Like I've lost a lot of trust from my family. Like when I was using and engaged in that behavior and stuff like that. Consequences, you know what I mean? Like there's consequences that come with drug and alcohol and stuff like that, and jails and loss of jobs and having to move back into my parents, and it was it was difficult. It definitely took a toll on my family. There was a lot of family members that I didn't talk to anymore that I reconnected with. There was like I said, towards the end of my road, it was like I exhausted all
the resource.
options. All resource, there was nothing. The only thing I didn't have was like, my mom wouldn't let me live on the street. That was it. Um, so I definitely had a place to live, but my kids were taken from me towards the end. CYS got involved, and my ex had taken the kids from me, which at the like now it was a blessing because that's what stopped me. But yeah, that was rough. Being able to like not see your kids and stuff. They were all young. And then like fast forward to today, it's my relationship with my kids is probably the most beautiful thing that I've ever had. Um, 'Cause I didn't realize like I was kind of taking it for granted when I was out there doing what I was doing. I didn't really think it'd hurt nobody. I'm like I'm just hurting myself. I'm not hurting anybody else. But now that I look back on it, like my family's like very deeply affected by like drug use, for sure.
Um,
Hmm.
I see that in a lot of families, they're struggling when they see the ones that they love.
Hmm.
How I can help that person. And your position, if I told you somebody come to you as a family, but we're gonna talk about family members. Um, what you would say to a family member for a person who just go to you and say, "Listen, I want to rehab. I want to be better."
Hmm.
How you will help that family, the composition of the family, because I know everybody struggle once somebody's in that position, all the family struggle.
Hmm.
How you will help that person?
Um, I would say the thing that like helped me the best, which I try to like, I had worked with somebody that's daughter was like struggling with addiction and stuff like that, and she didn't understand it, and I was able to kind of you know, explain to her that like, what that person's doing, that's not necessarily trying to hurt them directly. And also too, I think what helped me the most to try to finally get clean was like I said, my mom. It was like although it was like extremely difficult, and she like might wanted to like just give up on me sometimes, like she just couldn't. And like now today, like I don't know if I ever would have been successful if my mom didn't. I'm very weird with like the enabling thing. I know
Yeah.
you hear that word a lot, like oh, like a lot of my family members would tell my mother like you're enabling him. You know what I mean? You gotta just throw him out on the street. If she would have did that, I don't think I would have survived. So like unconditional love. My mom, like I had one friend, I had one close friend from high school. My mother and my father that like they didn't judge me. Like when I was around them, like I didn't feel, even though I was like broken inside and I was doing what I was doing, I didn't feel like judged. And that was like huge because like I really wasn't welcomed anywhere else except for home, and it was a little rocky, but I was still able to be welcome there. And I would say like that unconditional love that my family showed me, even though I was doing what I was doing, was what helped me to finally like get clean and stay clean. Because I think if I wouldn't have had anybody like to support me when I was going through that, I don't think I would have made it through.
Um, that's very important to know because a lot of people, the first thing that they say, oh, you're gonna label this person, you need to throw it out. He just took something from the house. We have addictions, people who take things from the house. I went through that. And the first, why you stood with him, or you're not supposed to be with him, you're not supposed to hold this person. But at the same time, what I'm gonna do? If I throw it in the street, what's gonna happen to him? And I think that's very important to understand. And right now, as a counselor, I think educate the complete family what the other person go through. It makes a difference when everybody understand when the other person go through. That usually what I do here when I talk to somebody who comes with that issue. We need to understand what the other person go through and not judge. That's very important. Cadriana, as a your point of view, you being a daughter for somebody who was that position.
Yeah. How was it like? There's a lot of things I said when you were talking that like mimicked my experience. I think it's kind of the same across the board. Obviously we're in two different places. I grew up in the Bronx, so even though I knew a lot of kids who their parents might have been addicts or their parents, might have sold drugs, it was still a very unspoken thing. It was almost like carrying like the burden of a shame that wasn't really yours. And it was like you want to talk to an adult about it at school, or you want to tell someone like what's going on, but you probably shouldn't. And so you kind of just carry that with you throughout your childhood. I think another thing was the idea of that person's not like directly trying to hurt you. You do get hurt in the process, but that person is not intentionally trying to hurt you. It was not a concept I really understood as a child. When you're a kid, you don't really know a lot of things because you can't, you don't have the experience to. And the idea I had was, well, if my dad loved me enough, he would stop doing drugs. And it wasn't like until I got older and, like you said, I educated myself on, how addiction actually works within the brain and the body and like mental and emotional health, that I realized his addiction had nothing to do with me and everything to do with his own traumas and his own past. And I had to like kind of separate myself from that and realize like, no, like I'm good, I am enough. He's got his own issues and I need to support him through that.
Um, Question to you. If you go back
Yeah.
when you was a child, in those moments that your father was going through addiction,
Yeah.
um, who was the person that somebody supposed to be there? How you handle the situation back and forth.
Okay, well, my mom is here, so don't be weird when I'm talking about her like she's not here, because it's very much my mom. But no, I don't know. My mom, she was always working. You know what I mean? She had to like you provide for the family in terms of like finances, because a lot of times once your addiction gets really bad, you're not really providing anything financially. You're kind of sucking all that up dry, really. So she was working a lot. I think she cared more for the physical needs of us, like making sure we were going to school, making sure we had a house, we had clothes, and we were being fed. I don't remember really having anybody that I can connect with emotionally, which obviously in turn I think created a lot of emotional problems for me, as well as my dad being on heroin, it made him very, like, his temperament very, like, high and cold. So I grew up seeing a lot of anger in my home, and in turn, like, I became a very angry person. Like, so when I'm mad, I'm mad, I'm pretty explosive, like, the house is blowing up, roof coming off, all that. I'm working on it, I'm getting better, though. But and then when I'm sad, I'm really sad. So I think I took a lot of his, like his habits of his moods, and I kind of mimicked that because I didn't have really anyone to tell me like, okay, well, you went through a lot this week. Like your PlayStation was taken away for drug money. There was a domestic dispute at home. There's stuff going on in school. Like, how you feeling? And no one really did that before to me. So. I didn't really have that. I did have my siblings though, so we could lean on each other, talk to each other about the situation. But yeah, it wasn't, I think, until I got older and my mom started to learn that she could actually be that support to me.
And that's the point that I see. Well, I went through that. And one thing that I say, if at least I knew what's going on with him, I should have come to my kids and know my kid was struggling. But I didn't know at that point. At that point, I was like, okay, they have a home, they have the bills paid, they're going to school, they're good. Let me deal with him this way, and I deal with myself later on. So when I see myself and I see him, I say, wow, I'm not using, but I'm using. That was the way I feel. And then when everything was calm, the house was everybody was calm. But when he was using, everybody was like all over the place, and it's create an imbalance between your family, your kids, and the person that is in the situation. And I think, I don't know, but what I feel is most of the person, when they time to clean and they look back, they feel kind of guilty because they see all these things. And my question is, how that person can get out from that guiltiness?
A lot of it is, a lot of it's like working on yourself. I know, to kind of relate it to what you were just saying was like, for me, I always felt like when I got clean, like how would I ever like repay the debts to my family? How would I ever like, whether it was financially, whether it was emotionally, whether it was like physically, like one of the big ones for me, like how is my family ever gonna trust me again? Because like you said, I stole, I cheated, I lied. I said I'm sorry about 5,000 times, so it didn't mean nothing anymore. And I remember my mother telling me that towards the end of the road, it was like, like I'm gonna go to rehab. I'm gonna do something different. I promise I'm gonna stay clean. I'd go to jail. Mom, bail me out. I promise I'll never do this again. And then within a week or two, I would do it again. And for somebody like me, it was like you carry a lot of guilt and shame because I too had kids, and it was like, I have 3 kids. Like, I don't want to keep living this way. I don't want to keep going to jail. Jail is. I'm not built for jail. I'm not afraid to say like I don't belong there. But I kept putting myself there. Rehab. Rehab's not a fun place. It's not like you see on TV with these celebrities where they're like at these spa resorts. It's not like that. But like for me, like my mom told me, it was like, you can't say you're sorry anymore. I know I've heard this a million times, but it was like, you can't say you're sorry anymore. Like, you got to show us something different. And I said, okay, I will. And I said that plenty of times. And, like when you first get clean, it's like really hard to see like the light. When I say the light, it's like the hope. It's like, all the consequences, like financially, put yourself in a hole. Loss of friendships and relationships because of, using drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Like, how am I ever going to fix this? Because we want to, like, instant results. Like, I want it fixed now. I want my family to accept me now. I want them to trust me now. You know what I mean? I want my relationship back now. Like, all those things don't happen. And, like, when I first got clean, it was, like, really hard to see, like, what my life was going to look like, years from now. Because I didn't see it. I was stuck in that rabbit hole of, like, constant misery, guilt, and shame. But for me, like, trust was the biggest one. Like, how are my parents ever going to trust me again when I've completely shattered trust from them, and the years of saying I'm sorry just aren't enough anymore. And I could say today it was all like finally it was taking that action with like change behavior, like staying clean, being trustworthy, paying them back, holding a job, not stealing anymore. It was all like these are all things that were happening over time that like I got to a place where it was like, okay, he is changed because you when you like if you change without making like forcing change, if that makes sense, like when it's just happening, a lot of times we don't see it in ourselves, but other people do. Like, wow, you're doing this different or that different, or they see you changing. And trust was the biggest one for me. I was like, how long would it be until my family could ever trust me again? It took a couple of years, but I can say now that like I haven't lied or broke their trust in since the day I got clean, and that getting that trust back, from my family after all the things I've done, that I didn't really want to do. Don't get it twisted. There's a lot of things that like I would say like like you were saying the Xbox. I didn't directly take my kid's Xbox, but there was certain times where I'm like I really don't want to do that. And you make a conscious effort to say, I'm not going to do that. And then all of a sudden, something's like knocking on your shoulder saying, like, hey, we got to get high, or we got to drink, and we don't got money. Like, you need that, So, yeah, when you start having changed behavior, you're able to gain a lot of that trust, and that guilt and shame kind of lifts. It's still a work in progress. It's still something I'm working on because on any given day, it could kind of hit me. Like even with my kids, like my kids were young. I like to say like, oh, well, they were young. They don't really know what was happening. But I make indirect amends to my children by like just not using drugs, being there. Whether it's like the little things. I used to think like spoiling them and buying them things and taking them like on little mini vacations. I thought like that was being a dad. You know what I mean? Like you were kind of saying too, like that the physical part or the financial part, like, hey, they're taken care of, they got nice shoes, you want this, sure, I'll buy that. And it wasn't until like I got clean and shared like little moments of just time. They didn't want $1. They didn't want $1 from me, they just wanted to like throw a ball in the backyard. That's not something I was doing when I was just drinking and getting high. It was just not it's just not what I was doing. It's not that I didn't want to, it was just the drugs having a loophole of like that was the main focus. And the guilt and shame is, like I said, years later, it's still something that I'm working on, but it got a hell of a lot better than it did when I started, because I was able to mend a lot of those relationships that I felt I would never get back.
I know a lot of people, they, like you say, lost family members, they lost friendships, they lost a lot of things. And when they become clean, one of the things that they struggling a lot is how I'm gonna recuperate all this. And sometimes they don't.
No. Hmm.
How I can help somebody who comes to me and it told me like, listen, I'm never gonna have the trust of that person, or that person is completely lost on my life. That's it. She don't want to know nothing, or he don't want to know family members, sisters, brothers, because I see it, nothing, and that person stay there because that person go back to that person even though it's hurt, because they want that person to trust. It's like a fighting a battle with the other person. No, you need to trust me because I'm doing better. I'm clean. I'm not the same person, but the other person doesn't understand. So how that, what I can say to that person if that person comes to me and say I cannot win that trust from the other person.
I mean, it's not. I know exactly what you're saying. It's kind of hard to like put into words, but it's not nothing you could force. Like I can't get out of treatment center or a rehab and a week later be like, hey guys,
I'm here.
I'm clean. You guys need to trust me again. It's not how it works. It's like I said, it's through the process of like time and like change behavior. And that's where it comes from. And there was something that you said too, kind of reminded me of saying something. Oh, you were saying like with families, how do you get them back to that place? Is what worked for my mom again was she kept telling me like she knew who I was before I picked up any drugs or any alcohol, and she knew who I was during and like towards the end of my road. And she was like, towards the end, I knew that person wasn't you because she knew me well enough before that to know that the things I was doing, how I was acting, how I was behaving, wasn't adjusting. You know what I mean? So she had like a lot of hope. Like once I got clean and I was able to like stay clean, that like I'll get that person back. But it takes time.
Basically, and all this situation, addiction or alcohol, is time.
Hmm.
You had the time when you go to the process that you're an addict, you're using drugs. Then you come out, you go to the rehab, and you're there, and you're learning about yourself, and you're learning everything. And this is the way I see it. I don't know. You correct me. You're in the process and addiction with your family. Everything is destroyed. Everything is a chaos. Then you decide to go to a rehab, or maybe you don't even decide to go to rehab. You go to jail. Let's say some other people say I'm gonna go because I'm gonna lose my kids. Anything, take you there to the rehab. And when you're in the rehab, some people, I don't will not say everybody. Some people start learning about themselves. This is something that I see a lot, and I don't know how in your job dealing with that is when you get out from there, or you almost gonna get out, that you there for 3 months, 6 months, depends the months that you there, until the moment that you're gonna get out from there, how that person, they go little by little getting mingled with the family or with the society, or they just get out from there and go straight to the society.
Well, like as far as like, there's a lot of pieces to like recovery. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You have like the detox process. You could do like an inpatient where it's usually like a 30 days. Then you could do like a step down program of like intensive outpatient, which is like 3 or 4 days a week. Then you could drop down and do 1 day a week in therapy. And then there's recovery houses, sober living. There's there's a lot there. And what I found through my experience was the longer you give yourself in the treatment is like the most is the best better chance you have of success. There's some people that might be able to go through a detox for a couple of days and then come out and be completely fine. But there's, for people that aren't educated in that, there's a lot. Like you could basically stay in treatment for like 3 years or longer. You could stay in a recovery house. They have recovery houses which they push you to keep a job, and they're managed by a certain person to say like, hey, you got to go to meetings, whether that's 12-step fellowships or whatever. You got to go to meetings. You got to hold a job. You got to pass a clean urine, once a week. It's just stuff to like hold you accountable. But it's also important for like the family members. That's why I'm saying it's like it's important that they have the education as well, which I don't think there's enough of, because like a lot of people that don't understand addiction, they say, okay, well, you went to rehab for a month and you're cured.
Yeah, that's it. Why you gonna come home
You're fine.
and start? You fine. Why
Or-
you feeling like that, or
or-
why you upset?
Yeah, or hey, you could have one drink as long as you don't drink a case. And I've seen it. Like, we laugh about it, but I see it all the time with a lot of people that if the family doesn't understand, there's a lot of people in treatment right now that are like, I'm scared to go home. That's the thing. Like, I'm scared to go home. My family doesn't understand, or, yeah, that's like definitely that's definitely a thing, and I don't think there's enough education on the family aspect of it to deal with the person that comes out of treatment, because it's such a fragile state that we're in.
That was the word that I was
And if
looking.
if you don't understand exactly what that person's going through, it's very difficult to understand. Like, how many people are like, all right, well, drugs are destroying your life. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds like
And like
Like
why you
alcohol is-
drinking alcohol?
alcohol
The
is killing
liver.
Please don't buy it. For people like us, we wish it was that simple.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or else we would have saved ourselves a lot of misery. But it's hard, and it's I was grateful that I wasn't a first time winner. I went to like every treatment center, I think, in freaking Pennsylvania, every detox facility and every treatment center in Pennsylvania until I finally got clean. But what it did for me was each time I was able to go, it gave like my family a little more like education, and then every time if I would relapse or something like that, they would say like, what's happening? And then it started to become like a question of like, why does this keep happening? If he goes and he's well, and like, how does this keep happening? And like I said, unfortunately, it took me bumping my heads quite a few times, and thank God I survived through it, because a lot of people don't. Finally got to a place where it was it was a situation for me, which was like my kids. I know a lot of people say like, hey, you gotta do it for yourself. You gotta do this. Like, yeah, I always wanted to do it for myself too, but I knew that one of the consequences was I wouldn't be able to see my kids again unless I stopped. So that was like a lot of people have like a rock bottom. I think
Yeah.
I hit a rock bottom, then like I hit a trap door and went further and further and further until finally like I had nothing left. And you know how many times like my mother would say to me like, please just get help before you like kill yourself. Kill myself with like the use of drugs and everything like that. And it was finally a moment for me. It was like a difference. Um, like the last time I went and actually stayed clean, it was like I went in there with the same attitude I always had with like, all right, we're gonna give this 110%. I really wanted it. I always wanted it, and it was like the last time. It was like something happened where I finally was just like, you know what, like I can't keep doing this anymore. And then I just put the idea in my head that like it's a crazy saying, but like a lot of people say like there's no retirement plan for a using drug addict, which there isn't. So it's either like, do I want to die using drugs and destroy my life, or do I want to give myself a chance to like live and enjoy my life? And it was something that happened when I was in treatment that like made me feel that way, where it was like didn't care about myself, I didn't want to kill myself, but I didn't care if I didn't wake up. That's how bad it got for me. And then all of a sudden something happened where I'm like, you know what? I don't want to like kill myself and live in misery no more. I want to like see what life has to offer me. And like, thank God I gave myself the opportunity, because when I think of that point I was in then compared to like now, I didn't get the fancy cars back and like the career and all that stuff back. But what I did get was, like trust from family. I'm trustworthy. I don't lie anymore. I don't think I friggin' took anything from a warmer in like 4 years. That's a big deal for me.
No, it's true. Like,
It's true. I don't steal. I haven't been in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are all things, but those are like the surface stuff. But what I gained in the process was like a peace of mind, like an internal peace. Knowing I'm doing the right thing for the right reasons. Being able to like have a healthy and happy relationship with somebody. Being able to have my kids in my life. They drive me nuts sometimes, but I'm like, what a beautiful thing. And it wouldn't be for like recovery and finally like getting clean and going to treatment and staying on that path, that I wouldn't even have anything I have today. And it gave me like an extra 50 pounds too. But yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And like I said, the family thing is a big one for me too. I'm closer to my family now than I've ever been, even before. Because of the things we've been through, we struggled. We struggled a lot, and they hung in there, and I hung in there the best I could. And my relationship with my parents today is the best it's ever been.
so us that we work in the community and we working with people who are using drugs, or we working with people who have addiction, any kind of addiction, and alcohol. Um, the best thing is the complete family should be in therapy.
Yes.
So we understand the person who go to rehab. When the person come out, we can help them and support them through the stage. Because coming out from rehab is another step for the other person who's coming out. And that's what I think most of the time, in my experience as a wife, I lack. Because I remember many times that he used to go, and when he used to come, I see him so clean, so happy. But I still having the pain. But you took this. But why he asked me for $10? That's what the cost of this. Or why he's going to the corner. Or well, and I know my kids putting things under the pillow because they were scared, even though we knew and now they understand. I say, wow. I just imagine him lay down on the bed now and say, wow, my kids don't trust me. My wife don't trust me. I cannot even say I want something because maybe he was scared at that point, what I'm going to do. And I understand that person then is like a second struggling once you come from rehab, like what I'm going to do with my life. That is worth it to be clean? Many people ask that question. Is this worth it to be clean? And they go back. because they're struggling, because family and nobody in the society know what they're going through.
Mhm.
And I think support groups is very important for everybody, especially for the kids who go through this. I see my kids. I remember when I started studying and noticing everything that was going on at home with my kids. I never thought that my kid was gonna be so damaged. And I'm saying, oh my God, but they was so little. How they was so damaged? So I started becoming the social worker because I didn't find nobody who say, okay, I'm gonna be a family worker for the addiction in your family. So I had to go, God, Bible studies, let me go to school, let me be that person who has the understanding what they're going through. But my kids were already 14, 15, 17, out from my house. So now what I'm gonna do with this package? So I think it's very true what you're saying, that everybody in the family suffer, but I think even the state, even the anybody who have a program like that, a rehab, should think, listen, those who are in the house have the need that he have. And I think that's what we're lacking right now. We're lacking the awareness of the family or the person who's sick. Because people say, this is the way I see it. Oh, they use drug, they use alcohol, they can deal with that. But that's not true, because if you sick with from the liver, everybody go to the hospital and visit you. Yeah? And you have with IB, and I see it. If it's one family member in the hospital, you see 10 people there. Support them. But if you see somebody who have any issue with addiction, nobody want to support that person. And I think that's a misconception that we have, what's going on with that other person that is over there. That's what I feel. And I feel and I know. And many people stay quiet because it's still now, even though that you see a lot of people and the media, oh, I went to rehab, I did this and that, but I don't want to go to my job and say, listen, my husband went to rehab this week, I have to take off, because that's a change.
Yeah.
That because they don't understand what everybody don't understand what's that. Now you, I know you went through Alliance School. What you would say to all those young kids that they had that position as a young kids at home?
Honestly, I think I would just say more to the parents, as in take your kid to therapy. I think I was like around like 13 or 14 or something like that. When I was like around 14 actually, we had a situation at home with one of my siblings attempted suicide, and they were hospitalized at Kids Peace, and it was the first time I ever experienced family therapy. And the like having someone guide us to being vulnerable with one another, and being actually honest about, like, well, dang, this really hurt me, but like you're obviously hurting more because you did this, so we need to figure something out. And I guess when I started to study, I realized how messed up I was angry because I was like, I watched my dad go in and out of rehabs, in and out of jail, and not once did we ever sit down and have someone explained to me that relapse happens in recovery. No one explained to me that. No one explained to him how to be vulnerable to us. You know what I mean? How to build that trust back, because that helped build trust within us. Like him being honest with me about how he felt, and me being able to actually understand him. That helped me trust him a lot more. No one did those things, and I didn't start doing those things for myself until
14?
No, older than that,
No,
like
the 15.
like 18. I was like, wow, like so much could have been avoided. So much, like mental illness, depression, so much bad decisions I made as a teenager because I was going through my, own pain and trauma. So to me, like to the kids, I would say speak up to someone, because you have that fear of, well, if I tell someone, child services is going to take me away from my family, and this sucks, but I'm pretty sure being in foster care would suck like 10 times more, so I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? But you should talk to someone, talking to your parents, letting them know that, how you feel, that you don't feel comfortable in a home that is in so much chaos. Not to say that you don't want to be there, but that you would want to work to something better. And for the parents who are going through the situation with their kids, to actually really get therapy for their children.
I will ask you what you will say to somebody who's coming out from rehab and found himself in the position that he has to get all this trust and everything that she's saying right now. As
Ooh. Um, Patience.
Yeah.
Um, like I said, it was for me, it was not. It was something that I had to kind of like sit back and take some action and do some things. It wasn't really like something I really necessarily like focused to work on. It wasn't like, all right, next on the agenda, like I'm gonna gain some trust with my kids, or next on the agenda, like I'm gonna get some trust from my parents or something like that. It was more or less like I just had to like put my head down, do what I had to do, stay clean. There was a lot of like you were talking about before with like like going back, like not seeing the hope. Like, hey, I lost my career. I don't have a job. I don't have a car. You know, my family's about done with my shit. Like all of these things. It was like it was very hard. Like when you were talking about like an early recovery, like when you first get out of treatment, it's like that's why it's so important that the family has like a little bit of education because like there's some days still, like 3.5 years later, like feelings and emotions are still very foreign. And like a lot of people may not understand that, but it's like for the longest time, I knew how I was gonna feel every day. Like whether I was sad, happy, depressed, anxious, whatever. Like I could take this pill or I could drink this bottle, and I'm gonna feel this way.
okay,
Like the death of somebody, I feel this way. You know what I mean? Like the greatest moment of my life, like the birth of a child, I feel this way. So it's very hard, like in early recovery, like deal with certain feelings and emotions because they're completely new. You're like a baby learning things all over again, and also like you got to be able to humble yourself and like ask for help a lot. Like, hey, I don't know how to pay my taxes because I don't. I don't know how to, I don't know how to do certain basic, adult things because for so long I was like neglecting every adult, thing in my life. So you got to be like humble and then not be afraid to ask for help. And also, some days to say like, "Hey, I'm having a rough day. Like, I just want to be left alone," because I have those days too. Um, that's why it's important to have like supportive friends and family or a supportive relationship or something like that to kind of read you too. And also, like, "Hey, are you okay?" Um, and be honest. Like that ability to be like brutally like raw honesty. Like that's
number one.
I would say that's yeah, like like honesty, and also have somebody too like that's been through a similar situation in you, because like somebody like me, I can't go to the grocery store and be like, hey, I feel like getting high today. They're gonna be like, well, what are you talking about? But I could go to somebody who's been through that and be like, hey, something happened, and like I feel like drinking today. You know what I mean? Somebody that's been through that certain situation, I could kind of like understand how you're feeling. That's probably like one of the most important things is like having a support network of people around you that have been through similar situations than you, because they could identify, with you, and it's definitely able to you have the ability to be more honest and open with people if you feel that they understand what you've been through. You know.
Yeah, I understand. That's something that I know is a lot. I see a lot of support groups, you know,
Hmm.
uh, for people who use alcohol, those who comes clean, and but my very concern is what you're saying. Educate educate the family, and that's something that we don't see a lot, and which I can understand, but because before people just to say he's an he's used alcohol, he's used drugs, or this person is in mental health, or he's depressed, it's okay, it's that person. But then who gonna pay for those who really not sick?
Hmm.
So who's gonna take those cases? And I think that's when we lacking, and the community leaders, and now I'm talking about the leaders here. I see leaders that they had the opportunity to open a place and say, listen, like you want to do the group, here's my place, do it for that family.
Hmm.
And as a community, we lacking in that. I feel like we lacking a place where you say, listen, I went through that. I know what the family need. Can I use your place? And I know a lot of people will tell you no because they doesn't understand. Even though they're leaders, they doesn't understand. And this is I'm talking to my leaders. My leaders, when I say church leaders, and I say
Very
church
important.
leader. I'm very clear in that, and I understand because um, when I see a lot of family, the the husband drink. Let's say drink because that's the less what they see that is worse. Um, but because he drinks what every Friday and he work, but when he come Friday he get paid and from his paycheck that person spent $200 and drinking or use whatever he use. People don't see that bad. And then come the next week and that person spent $300 and went gambling and drinking and using drugs and people don't see that bad until unless they see that the person is in the hole. But nobody knows what happened when that person is spending those $200.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I sometimes I'm like, you know, I feel that's like that have a name. That is like when the person is like they say, no, you are a functional alcoholic, or you are functional
I
drug.
really
And
hate
and
that
I
term.
that work
Sorry,
it
It don't
bothers.
go that way.
And,
It don't end
you
that
know
way.
what? It bothers me because I see people who go the entire week to very nice husband and wives because it happens to women too.
Mm-hmm.
Don't take it wrong. It happens to women too. Women
Mm-hmm.
go to rehab. Women use drugs. Women use alcohol. And I don't say use alcohol is bad. I don't want nobody misunderstand me what I'm saying. I'm saying when you abuse, doesn't matter why you abuse, it become an issue in the family. I see people like they work all week, and when it comes Friday, they drink and they get aggressive with the family. That's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't see that a problem because that person is working every week during the week and supposedly they have a healthy family. What we can do in that case? How you tell the person that he think that it's okay because he don't, unless the police stop it and they give a DUI, then oh I have an issue. But it was couples of drink only. What we gonna say to that family?
Um, I like what you're saying is like doing a lot of research and stuff too. It's like basically if you like drink or use drugs for a desired effect, it could be a problem. So it's like, is one drink at having a glass of wine at Christmas a problem? No,
No.
but you know what I mean. Like every weekend, maybe you just like to kick back and have a couple of glasses of wine or whatever. But it becomes it usually, I'm not going to say it's not the same for everybody. It's like a touchy subject, but usually if you drink or use drugs to alter your mood or your behavior, is when
Okay.
it could become a problem.
That
If
was
that
the big
makes
question.
sense.
It makes sense. That's
know?
what I want to bring, because a lot of people I know they people who work like you say you find everybody, but unless you don't see those changes of behavior,
Mm-hmm.
you don't recognize you have a problem.
I was gonna say for me, and because I do work a lot with leaders within the faith community, it's kind of how Roots works. You know what I mean? We work in partnership with a lot of churches and organizations. Something that I see lacking in the faith community so much is just general awareness of mental health. Not even just drug addiction, but just general mental health awareness. Like, just making sure that you're okay, like up here, like that's just something that we don't do. It could be a lot because of the religion or the spirituality. I don't really want to get into it too much because people get touchy about it. But I do see something that is lacking in that. I notice a lot of leaders don't comprehend how disorders are not always seen on the physical. You know what I mean? People are people inside too. I may seem, like you said, physically okay, but emotionally, I'm not doing okay. And later on, it will probably boil down to the physical, like manifestation of that. So I think it's important that we educate our leaders and hope that they educate their congregations, and it just keeps going down and down and down, I think. So like opening dialogues. I think dialogue is important between faith leaders. Yeah.
Something that you want to say or encourage that you would say to the people that are seeing us right now about this issue right now?
Um, I mean, the reality, I hate to be so blunt about it. The reality of the matter is there's a lot of young people, young and old, that are dying right now, from a direct result of like drinking and using drugs. And, you know, um, for me, it's a matter of life and death. That's for me, and that's the way I treat it. I know the what I went through with, what I went through. It was like pain, misery, suffering. It was like it was terrible, and I never thought that I could ever get to a place of like feeling peaceful and living the life that I liked living and everything like that. And if I could say anything, it would definitely be if you are struggling, there is resources out there. There's 12-step fellowships, and addiction could take many forms, whether it's gambling or shopping. A lot of people get it twisted, like,
Yeah.
oh, it's only drinking or alcohol. Addiction takes many forms.
Yes.
But there is, there could always be more of anything. There could always be more resources out there, for people to get help. But I think to the point now, whether it's insurance, there's hotlines, there's 12-step fellowships, there's peer groups and support groups. I know a lot of churches are like renting out basements and stuff for us to meet at and stuff like that, which is like really cool because it shows that like we have trust, from that community as well. There's there is a lot of resources available. The main thing is like, if you're struggling, you got to be able to like reach out for help. You got to humble yourself and say like, hey, I need help. That's the hardest part. And then also being able to admit that like you do have a problem. It took me a long time to say like, even though everything was falling down around me, even though that like my life was in shambles, I was still able to tell myself like, I ain't that bad. So being able to like reach out for help and be able to trust family members, like you were saying too, like
Yeah.
that's big. Um, I know if I would have thought, I went to my mom and said like, hey, I need help, and she would have like kicked me to the curb and like not supported me, I probably wouldn't have told her.
Yeah.
It's very important to have that relationship in your direct household to like reach out for help, and also to like hold them accountable. Um, but the main thing is like, you gotta give yourself a chance. You know, you gotta give yourself a chance because the reality of the matter is it's bad. It's bad. A lot of people, more people die from drug overdoses today than anything else.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Young, old, kids. I see. At my job, a lot of young kids coming in, not even 20 years old, 18, 19 years old, in
Wow.
treatment. Mental health, substance abuse. It's bad. Um, and like a lot of like the drugs nowadays, it's synthetic, and it's just it's dangerous. That's all I'm gonna say is it's dangerous. But one thing is, ask for help, getting help, and being able to receive the help.
Okay.
I guess I would encourage people to really work on letting go of shame and guilt. Understanding that it's not your burden to carry, but it also isn't the burden of the person going through the addiction. They are hurting too, just as you are. And get therapy. Find someone that you're comfortable talking to, and just really diligent be on therapy. Not for 2 weeks, not for 3 weeks, but go until you think that you can support yourself with your own support system outside of therapy.
For my part, I would say thank you to come and talk about your experience, which is very touching and
Yeah.
very happy to see somebody who survived and
Sure.
doing giving the opportunity to somebody else to survive too. And especially now after COVID-19 that we see this like humongous, I would say, people in depression with mental health, alcohol, using drugs, all this that we've been seeing lately. Um, Kadriana, she always here. Uh, what I'm gonna say with her. Everybody knows Cadriana already. I would say and encourage every family who go through this, that not just the person who going through addiction or alcohol, any addiction, shopping addiction, gambling addiction, um, you name it. Um, Everybody in the family suffer. Look for help. Look for support groups. Um, Look for somebody you can sit down and can listen to you, understand your feelings, your emotions, and be part of that person. Don't let that person just fall and say, hey, that's not my problem. This is everybody's problem in the community. Everybody's going through this, not just one person. Every three house in the community, it go through something. Let's listen. Let's look the kids around the school. Let's be meaningful. What's going on outside? Um, and I would say we have the women group support here in Spanish at 7 every Wednesday. For English at 8 o'clock. The U group is
At 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. And soon we're going to open a men group. We just trying to look how we're going to do with the men's. But we here, Root Living Ministries here, just call, get in contact with us if you need something, if you need somebody to talk. We will guide you to the right person and to the right place. Good night and be blessed.